Hello and welcome. You're watching Scatter Die Guy, the show which is all about the mathematics, statistics, and game mechanics of Warhammer the Old World. In today's episode, we're going to have a look at something which came out of the first round of FAQs that Games Workshop released for the game just after launch. And there was a really interesting situation there that I thought would make for some quite interesting mathematical analysis. So without further ado, we'll jump straight in. So the situation is, the question that was asked is, if a weapon with the Armour Bane X special rule also has the poisoned attack special rule, what happens if you roll a natural 6 when rolling to hit? The answer was, a rule such as Armour Bane X can have no effect if no roll to wound is made. In such cases, you may choose to roll to wound as normal in the hope of improving the weapon's armor-piercing characteristic, but if you do, the effect of poisoned attacks is lost, and you must accept the result of the roll to wound. So, just to explain a bit more in terms of what's actually going on here, if we look at the two special rules. Firstly, poisoned attacks. So with poisoned attacks, if you roll a 6 to hit, when you're rolling to hit, you automatically wound. So you don't have to roll to wound, you're just automatically considered to have scored a wound. Whereas with Armour Bane, you get Armour Bane X, and that increases the attack's armor piercing characteristic by X on a roll of 6 to wound. So the issue here is if you've got both of these special rules and you roll a 6 to hit, so that you would automatically wound with the poisoned attacks special rule, you don't roll to wound. So in that case, you can't also benefit from the Armour Bane special rule. And what Games Workshop is essentially saying here is you can have a choice. So if you roll a 6 to hit, you can decide, do I roll again to wound and risk obviously failing to wound, but also with the potential benefits of rolling a 6 and triggering Armour Bane? Or do you take the automatic hit from poisoned attacks, but then forego the potential to benefit from Armour Bane? And what's really key is the point at which you have to make this decision. So this triggers when we roll a 6 to hit, and we can now decide, do I take the benefits of Armour Bane, or actually do I not take, so do I take the benefits of poison attacks, or do I risk it and try for the benefits of Armour Bane in that situation? And you have to make the decision there. So you can't roll to wound, not score a wound, and then go, but I had poisoned attacks. You've decided at that point that you're going to risk it, that you're going to take that gamble. So what's really interesting about this situation is there will be, in any given scenario, a better choice. Do I take the automatic wound from poisoned attacks, or do I risk it and try for the benefits of Armour Bane? But which of those is the better choice is not always going to be particularly obvious. And so we need to do a little bit of number crunching in this situation, essentially to work out which choice gives me the best odds of producing an unsaved wound, which is obviously the ultimate goal. It's great having an automatic wound, but if our opponent rolls for their armor save and saves it, it doesn't achieve anything. So what we're really aiming for is that unsaved wound. So let's have a little look. So the first thing just to think about is the roll chain. So this is, when you make an attack, you roll dice, or if you make multiple attacks, you roll pools of dice. You roll any given die multiple times, and at any point you could fail, but if you succeed, you keep going. So the first thing you do is you roll to hit, then you roll to wound for any dice that have scored a hit, and then for any dice which have scored a wound, your opponent will get to roll for their armor save. If they're unsuccessful in their armor save, they may also have a ward save or the regeneration special rule, or those kind of bits as well. So they may roll for that as well. So if we take poisoned attacks, and if we roll that 6 to hit, and we take the benefits of poison attacks, we no longer have to roll to wound. So we're skipping that step. And of course, that is a step at which there is a risk that we would fail, that we wouldn't wound, and therefore this goes no further. So there's an obvious benefit there in taking that automatic wound. In contrast, if we try for Armour Bane, we are going to roll to wound, but when it comes to the armor save, presuming that the opponent did have an armor save roll, then Armour Bane is going to improve our chances as the attacker of that going through. So essentially, if their armor save being unsuccessful, which is going to result in a successful unsaved wound. Now, the really key thing in this is we can zoom in on this problem. We don't need to look at this whole roll chain. So we don't need to look at the to hit roll. We only have this decision. It's only relevant to us at the point that we've already rolled a 6 to hit. So we're only going to look at that scenario. We're going to ignore the to hit roll. We can also ignore ward saves and regeneration, because no part of what we're deciding here is going to have any impact on the probabilities of those. So really, this is about those two steps highlighted here on this slide, the to wound roll and our opponent's armor save roll. Before we go any further, let's just introduce some terminology we're going to use. So first off, PW, you can see here, is going to signify the probability of a successful to wound roll. That's obviously going to depend upon the attack strength, so our strength plus any bonuses we get from the weapon, and the opponent's toughness, which is going to be compared to the to hit chart, and we're going to get a a target roll number out of that, and obviously that will be if we wound on a 6, then that's a 1 in 6 probability. If we wound on a 2+, that's a 5 in 6 probability. So PW is the to wound roll. PAS is the probability, in this case, that our opponent is unsuccessful in their armor save roll. So we're looking for a scenario where we successfully achieve an unsaved wound. So in this scenario, I'm going to designate PS as the probability that they're unsuccessful in their armor save roll. And particularly that's going to account obviously for their base armor value. It's also going to account for any base armor piercing value that our weapon has, but excluding the effects of Armour Bane. So, this is, if we don't get Armour Bane, this is what they would have to roll, this is based upon what they would have to roll to successfully save, or say, in this case, to be unsuccessful in their save. And then finally, we've got PAS dash. And PAS dash is the modified probability that they are unsuccessful in their armor save roll, accounting for Armour Bane. So this only applies in a situation where we've rolled a 6 to wound, we've got the benefits of Armour Bane, and obviously their armor save is their probability of success in the armor save is going to be reduced because we've increased our armor piercing characteristic. So if we take the poisoned attack special rule, the overall probability from this position, so we've already rolled a 6 to hit, the probability from this position that we're going to score succeed in an unsaved wound is simply the probability that they are unsuccessful in their armor save, because we're not rolling to wound, they're making their armor save roll as normal, and so it's simply PAS. Conversely, if we look at the Armour Bane scenario, so in this scenario, we're going to roll to wound, we're going to gamble, we're going to, ignore our automatic wound and have a go. And it's a slightly more complicated scenario here. So the first part of the equation, we've got PW, the probability that we're going to score a wound, minus 1 in 6. So we're looking at the probability that we're going to score a wound, excluding the scenario where we roll a 6 to wound. And that is then multiplied by the probability that they're unsuccessful in their armor save. And then we add to that the 1 in 6, so the scenario where we do roll a 6 to wound, and we multiply that by that modified probability that they're unsuccessful in their armor save, so accounting for the Armour Bane. So the question is, which is best? So if PAS is greater than the equation, if we take the Armour Bane approach, the probability of success with the poisoned attacks is greater than probability of success with Armour Bane, then obviously the poisoned attacks is going to be the better choice to make. And similarly, if the inverse is the case, so if PAS is less than that equation for when we try and take Armour Bane, then obviously we're going to be more likely to be successful trying for Armour Bane. So when we're evaluating this, we need to crunch these numbers and see which one comes out with the higher value. Now, it might be the case that actually we're making this more complicated than it needs to be, and it's always going to be better to take one or other approach. So it could be the case, potentially, that it's always best to take the automatic hit from poisoned attacks. Or it could be the case that actually it's always best to try for Armour Bane and ignore the benefits of special attacks. That would be quite a simple scenario and it'd be quite a simple answer. Or there's an alternative, which is that actually this is going to depend on the specific situation. So, what is the to wound roll? What is the opponent's armor save roll? What is the opponent's armor save roll once modified by Armour Bane? And if we compare those variables, there could be some scenarios that it works out best taking poison attacks, and some scenarios where it works out best taking Armour Bane. So before we go too far, it's probably useful to evaluate that and understand which of those different scenarios are we really in with this combination of special rules. So we're going to have a look at what I like to call the edge cases. So let's imagine first of all a scenario where we get minimal benefits from risking the wound and trying for Armour Bane. And that, of course, would be served in a scenario where our opponent simply has no armor save. Obviously, if our opponent has no armor save, there is no benefit to Armour Bane. So if we gambled and risked for Armour Bane, it's pointless. We get no benefit from that, but we risk not wounding. So in this case, obviously, taking the automatic wound from poisoned attacks is the best approach because it's guaranteed to wound. We've got an automatic wound, and there is no armor save. So what about the converse scenario? So let's imagine a scenario where actually we maximize the benefits of Armour Bane and we minimize the benefits of the automatic wound. So in this case, let's imagine it's a 2+ to wound. Sorry, I just noticed there's a typo on the slide there. It's a 2+ to wound, a 2+ armor save, and we have Armour Bane 5. So in this case, risking it, we're not taking too big a risk. We've got a 5 in 6 chance of wounding, as opposed to a 6 in 6 chance, essentially, if we take the automatic wound. So we're not taking too big a risk by ignoring the automatic hit. Without Armour Bane, our enemy has a very good armor save. 5 in 6 times they're going to be successful. So only 1 in 6 times they're going to be unsuccessful. However, with Armour Bane 5, we completely negate that armor save. They don't get an armor save. So it's always going to be, if we wound, it's always going to be successful. So in this scenario, if we take the poisoned attacks, then our chance of success, PAS, is 1 in 6, which is about 17%. Whereas if we try for Armour Bane, then we run all the numbers through the equation and we get a result out which is 10 in 36 or 28%. So in this case, 17%, the probability of success if we take the automatic hit is less than 28%, which is the probability of success if we try for the benefits of Armour Bane. So in this case, risking the hit, risking the wound, and trying for the benefits of Armour Bane is clearly best. It's a sizable step improvement. So we've looked at those two edge cases, and what we've seen is that at one extreme, we have a scenario where clearly there's no point risking the automatic wound when we are for Armour Bane because we don't get any benefit from it. And at the other extreme, there are scenarios that we can see where actually it is better to risk that wound and try it for the benefits of Armour Bane, and that does increase our probabilities of success. So that being the case, we then need to work through this in a bit more detail and work out where's the line, where is the point at which it becomes better to go one way or the other. So what I've done, I'll show you the analysis I've done. On this slide, we're looking at a scenario where we have Armour Bane 1. And if you look at the top table, we're looking at the probabilities of success with if we gamble. So if we don't take the automatic wound, we roll to wound, hopefully get Armour Bane, and that would obviously reduce the armor save, increase the overall prospects of success. The second table is showing us the scenario if we don't gamble it, if we just take the automatic wound, what are the probabilities of success based upon the opponent's armor save armor save value. So again, that's their armor save accounting for any basic armor piercing characteristics, but not including the Armour Bane bonus. And then the bottom table is a comparison between the two. So that's showing us if we tried for Armour Bane in this scenario, based upon the to wound roll and the basic armor save roll, are we more or less likely to achieve an unsaved wound than if we just take the automatic wound from poisoned attacks? So we can see if we've got Armour Bane 1, actually there are no scenarios where it's better to take that gamble. There is one scenario, which is where we have a very good to wound roll of just 2+, and the opponent has a very good armor save of 2+, where actually it's equal. But it doesn't matter. We can choose either way. It's the same probabilities, just via slightly different paths. However, if we then look at the same analysis for Armour Bane 2, you can see obviously we've got slightly better Armour Bane. We're getting slightly more benefits from it, and you can see in this scenario, again, most of the time it's better to take the automatic wound from poisoned attacks. But there is, in a really extreme scenario, so where we have that 2+ to wound target, but our opponent has a really good armor save of 2+, in that scenario, it's slightly better to take the benefits of Armour Bane. And then there are some more scenarios where it's even, but again, most of the time it's going to be better to it's going to be better to keep the automatic wound and not try for Armour Bane. Armour Bane 3, we can see it starts to expand, so we have slightly more scenarios where actually we slightly improve our chances by gambling the wound and trying for Armour Bane. And we can keep going. If we look at Armour Bane 4, it gets better again, and Armour Bane 5. So in Armour Bane 5, if our opponent has a 2+ armor save before Armour Bane, obviously Armour Bane 5 will completely negate that. And you can actually see that in any case, that's the scenario. We are, it's always either the same or better to risk the wound to try for Armour Bane in that scenario. Obviously, Armour Bane 5 is a very high value, but it is worth noting that Armour Bane is a stackable rule. So, I'm not aware of any scenarios where you're going to get Armour Bane 5 straight out the gate, but potentially with, multiple stack special rules, special items, you could have a character who might be able to get themselves up to that. It would obviously be unlikely that character would have no armor piercing characteristic before Armour Bane, but there are potential scenarios is the point. So that's the analysis. So you can obviously check against those tables to work out, what's the right choice in any given scenario. I've also kind of condensed it down to some rules of thumb. They're not terribly succinct, but they kind of explain the different scenarios. So the first is, if your opponent's armor save before Armour Bane, but accounting for your basic armor piercing characteristic, is a 4+ or worse, so 4+, 5+, 6+, always take the automatic hit from poisoned attacks. There's no benefit to risking that for Armour Bane. If your Armour Bane X value is less than 2, again, always take the automatic hit from poison attacks. If your to wound target is 6 plus, again, always take the automatic hit from poisoned attacks. However, there are a couple of scenarios where it makes more sense to try for Armour Bane. So, if your opponent has a 3 plus armor save before Armour Bane, but accounting for your basic armor piercing characteristic, and your to wound target is 2 plus, then you can try for Armour Bane X, provided X is greater than or equal to 2. And then if your opponent has a 2 plus armor save before Armour Bane, but accounting for your basic armor piercing, then try for Armour Bane if X is greater than or equal to your to wound target. So hopefully that makes sense, and a good set of rules, but otherwise, I say you can just go and check against the tables. That's it for today's episode. So I hope you found that interesting. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. It's been an incredible experience for me starting this channel not too long ago, and just seeing how it's grown. We've got over 100 subscribers now, over 3,000 video watches. And yeah, it's just been really encouraging. So I really appreciate that. If you found this helpful, or if you're got any comments or there's any questions, do let me know in the comments. Obviously, please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. I do have a Patreon. I currently have one Patreon supporter, so thank you so much if that's you. That means a lot. But I do put, for every episode I put up, there's detailed show notes that go alongside this. So if you want copies of those tables, for example, for reference when you're playing, you can download those notes and you'll find all of that there, which can be really valuable to you during your games. It's just a $1 a month Patreon subscription, so it's not not asking for lots, but just some little bit extras there if you're willing to support me. That would be great. But whether or not you are, thanks so much for watching. I really hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you next time.